Okay. Hey there, welcome to the Lore to Death podcast. My name's Brett, and today I want to talk about the plans for the rest of 2023 and the plans for 2024. So to address the elephant in the room, I am going to be taking a break for the remainder of 2023. This episode will be coming out on December 13th, 2023, and the show will be coming back on January 10th, 2024, so the second week of January. So I'm going to be taking a month off, and the entire purpose of this is so that I can kind of review the show, see what worked, what didn't, and catalog some episodes so that when I have to go away or if I miss a week, then I still have an episode coming out. This year has been a little hectic, to say the least, and it might have been the worst year to try to start a podcast for me because of how busy it was, but I don't regret starting it. This has been a very fun journey, and I'm looking forward to continuing it in a little bit more of an involved capacity. So what does that mean for the podcast in 2024? Well, it means taking a look at the different formats that I've used over the course of 2023, and again, seeing what worked and what didn't. This is a little bit of a look behind the curtains, but currently the two best performing episodes are Aperture Science and Why KOTOR is a Perfect Game, which is one of my earliest lore videos on Aperture Science, which I thought was really fun to make, and I thought it was a very good episode, and clearly people agree. And then a very drastically different analytical look on one of my favorite video games. It wasn't really lore-based at all, it was more just me gushing about why I love KOTOR and why I think that it was a great game. And I was honestly surprised that people took to it so well. I thought it was going to be a little bit of a black sheep, and it didn't really fit what I thought the idea for the podcast was. So I didn't think it was going to do very well at all. But I was pleasantly surprised. It was a lot of fun to do, and it's something that I would like to do a little bit more in 2024. This might apply more to newer games that I play. It might not necessarily be retro games, but I am open to suggestions, and if anyone has any ideas, then I would love to hear them. Another way that I want to shake up the podcast a little bit is to start adding on guests to certain episodes. This is going to be an entirely new field for me, so when it starts, it might not be as perfect as it could be, but it'll still be mostly me doing the episodes, but maybe once every couple months, I will do an episode with someone else. And these episodes would be likely longer format, because it would be a little bit more of a conversation rather than just me screaming at a screen. And these would likely be the longer format episodes that people have been requesting since I started this podcast. I think the only complaint that I've really heard is that the episodes are too short, which is kind of my entire point. I like good, concise information, and I don't always necessarily want to sit down for an hour or an hour and a half long podcast. But hopefully this kind of fills that hole for some people, and I can give an hour, hour and a half long episodes with conversations with other people about video game lore and other things. Over the course of 2023, I've had a couple people reach out and ask if they could be guests, and out of service for them, I decided to say, not right now, but I will get back to you eventually. I was just starting out the podcast, and honestly, I had no idea what I was doing on my own, let alone with another person. I think taking on a guest is something that was a little daunting for me, but now that I have done my own guest spot on someone else's podcast, I think that I have a little bit of a better idea on how to do it. And so I think I'm a bit more comfortable asking people to come on in 2024. Again, this is only going to be a few times. It's not going to be every week. It's not going to be every single episode. It'll just be a few times throughout the year. So if you have a podcast or you just know about video games and you want to come on the show, please feel free to send me a message. I would love to hear from you. I'd love to talk to you. I'd love to see what we can do together. And then a nice segue from that point is me doing a guest spot on someone else's podcast. This podcast episode might be out by the time that I post this. I am not 100% sure, but I did an episode with the lovely folks over at Overthinking Games, which I've mentioned once or twice on the show, and on my Instagram stories, I'm constantly sharing their stuff. I absolutely adore those guys. I love their podcast, and I'm very thankful that they let me come on. So I'll have a link to their podcast in the show notes, and when the episode comes out, I will also be sure to link that in the show notes. So that was something a little different for me, but I think it opened up a lot of avenues in terms of what I can do with my own show. And that's pretty much it. I'm going to be taking a break for a month at the end of the year just so that I can focus on festivities, holiday activities, being with family, and of course writing a few episodes to make sure that I have some in the bank. I'll also be scouting for some podcast guests and looking at a couple different formats to do on the show. I might experiment with a couple different formats, but I'm not sure that I want to talk about them yet because it's not a fully formed idea that I have, and I don't want to give any false expectations just in case it doesn't go through. But that being said, 2023 has been a great year for this podcast. We are still very much a little niche, but we are just about to hit 1,000 total downloads across all the podcast platforms that I can think of. And we're creeping up on 1,200 views on the YouTube channel, which I had unfortunately abandoned for the last half of 2023. Doing the subtitles and everything was just a lot of work. It took genuinely twice as much effort to put out the YouTube video as well. So I'm going to be bringing that back in 2024, but without subtitles. Unless I can get a better transcription software that understands fake words that are all made up. I remember I really had a hard time in Star Wars episodes because it didn't understand planets or species or anything, and that was really hard to go in and manually fix the transcription. But I'm going to revive the YouTube channel. Hopefully that continues to do well. Hopefully the podcast continues to do well, and I'm really looking forward to 2024. But, and I think I said this before, that's all I have to say. I hope that everyone has a lovely holiday season, regardless of what you celebrate and who you celebrate it with. I hope that you have a great time and a relaxing end to the year. And I hope that 2024 is fantastic to you. I hope that 2023 has been fantastic to you. And if it's been a little rough, then I hope the next one's better for you. And I promise I'll lure you to death in the next episode. It won't be like this. So, see ya.